Hi, everyone. Harry here to talk about Trump's appeal of his ban from Twitter a couple years ago. So you remember, he was mainly just spewing lie after lie after lie in a way that, Twitter had this policy. It wasn't easy to trigger, as it were, but you can't just spew total falsehoods on there. So they yanked it. It was a big deal, right? That's how he communicated with everyone. What did he have? Many, many millions of followers, and he challenged it. Okay, very quick First Amendment primer. You guys probably know this principle. Everyone here is, halfway through law school. If you want to know what to do after the whole dust settles, and hopefully we still have a country. The First Amendment to the United States Constitution, Congress shall make no law, etc., etc. So if the government suppresses your speech, that's a violation of the First Amendment. If a private company that you contract with suppresses your speech, it's not. So the argument that Trump was making to the Ninth Circuit is, while it was Twitter that announced the policy and executed it and administered it, it was actually a violation of the First Amendment because it was driven by the government. And why is that? Because there were a handful of members of Congress who called out the inflammatory rhetoric from Trump and called on Twitter to do something about it. That's kind of ironic, of course, because the notion about the First Amendment is normally what should happen is the marketplace of ideas. Trump says something and people say something to oppose him. And that's exactly what happened to try to bring attention to it. But some of those people, and there were dozens and dozens, you may recall, were members of Congress. So the argument, and here's an interesting little sidelight. I don't know if you'll remember from a couple years ago, the chief judge on the Ninth Circuit, a man named Alex Kaczynski, long-serving conservative but sort of iconoclast. He got in a terrible Me Too situation in which a series of clerks came forward to say that he had behaved inappropriately. It was the details were murky and it didn't involve crimes, but just bad jokes, maybe some whatever. No need to revisit that. It was enough that he had to resign. Anyway, he showed up as the lawyer for Trump in the Ninth Circuit, making the case for him, which was a strange kind of. He had been the chief judge. The judges on the Ninth Circuit were apparently very sort of blank-faced about it and didn't react one way or another, just called him counsel. But anyway, the argument is because of this pressure from members of Congress, you should really consider it to be the action of the United States government. A pretty weak argument. No reflection on Kaczynski. That's just all that Trump has here, because he has to try to bring it into state action for a First Amendment violation. And of course, no official action of Congress for 4 or 5 people to be out there saying this is revolting. Twitter, do something. So, it's just individual members of Congress for starters. And then second, the argument really focused on, did they force it? In essence, was Twitter just, following the government command, in a nice way, but basically they had to because the government told them to. And so it really is the conduct of the government. That was the case on the facts, basically, that Kaczynski had to try to carry. And it didn't sound like he got very far, that the 3 judges on the Ninth Circuit were all pretty dubious, that this was really somehow the action of the government, because a number of members of Congress had sort of been in the fray, which included, very loud voices from all over, not to mention Trump's himself. So appeal of the Twitter suspension doesn't look to me like it's going anywhere, because it doesn't look like they're going to be able to show that it's action of the U.S. government. Still leaves, by the way, these very important hovering issues in society. To what extent should government regulate a place like Twitter? Should Twitter just be able on its own to decide to let false or worse, dangerous rhetoric there? Whole big, kind of welter of issues that comes to the fore with real urgency in the age of Trump, where he says stuff and people get violent. But for now, the Twitter suspension on his part is going to hold up, I think, because it's Twitter that did it, not the U.S. government, notwithstanding former Judge Alex Kaczynski's strong efforts to say this really was the U.S. government that had made Twitter dance to their tune. Judges were pretty dubious, and it seems pretty dubious on the facts. So expect the Ninth Circuit to reject the appeal, and I don't see the Supreme Court taking the case. So I don't see the Twitter suspension being revisited legally. Talk to you later. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video and other Talking Feds content, please take a second to like and subscribe. Talk to you later.